Hi, my name is Joy McDonnell. Simplicity offers a wide range of patterns for sewing your own unique personalized doll clothes. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 helpful tips for sewing these clothes. And in tip number 3, I'm going to give you one of my favorite little techniques for getting ruffles and gathers through the machine nice and easy. So let's get started. Tip number 1, not all dolls are the same. There are differences between brands of dolls, and even within a single brand, there are differences in how that doll is stuffed. So it's important to take the measurements of your doll before you get started on your project. There are 2 different ways to take measurements. You can take measurements using a soft ruler and measure around the doll and then compare the measurements to the pattern pieces. Or you can take the pattern pieces and put them right onto the doll's body and check for accuracy. If you notice that you need to make any adjustments, make them before you get started on cutting. And make sure that you're using the same measuring method throughout your entire project. Doll clothes are made with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I like to use a quilting sewing foot because it allows for that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I can line up the edge of my fabrics on the foot and sew very easily. So you might want to think about adjusting your presser foot for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Tip number 2, there are tons of fabrics to choose from. Choose ones that have good contrast in color and good contrast in size so that you get the details right in your options. Jersey knits make a great fabric for t-shirts and leggings. Denim is perfect for jeans, but you're going to spend most of your time choosing quilting cottons because they come in great contrasts of color and they come in great contrasts of size. And within any line of fabrics, you're going to find tons of different options. In this example, I've used a series of medium prints along with small prints. And as you're choosing prints, you want to look at the size of your pattern piece. Put that up against the fabric and choose which sorts of fabrics are going to translate well into the garments you're creating. In this example, I used a small print along with a medium-sized print. And I knew my medium-sized print would work because I checked it against my pattern. In this, I also used a cute little contrasting rickrack along the bottom, and it made little scallops. Rickrack comes in a couple different sizes and tons of different colors. So visit the notion section and look for good rickrack options that you have for your garments. Also, you're going to want to spend some time in that notions department because you're going to look for hooks and eyes. These are good closures for the backs of your necks and the backs of your pants. Also snaps. You want to look for small size snaps. Sometimes you can find them all alone in one set, or sometimes you need to get the variety pack to get the itty bittiest, smallest size snaps you can find. You want to look for hook and loop tape. Hook and loop tape can come with an adhesive back or without. I like to choose the one without because it reduces the bulk in my garment. The thinner I can find the hook and loop tape, the better. And if I have to buy something that's wider, I'll go ahead and cut right down the center and use only 1/2 the width of the tape. This particular one I really like because it has hooks on one side and loops on the other, so that reduces the bulk in the garments. Elastics come in so many different sizes, but I always look for the smallest, thinnest elastic I can find because it makes perfect waistbands in doll clothes. You want to also look for little tiny buttons. Look in your notions department again because you'll find good button options, and then look for thin ribbons and fun buckles. Sometimes I look in the jewelry department because I can find good options over there. Tip number 3. To create gathers and ruffles, large pieces of fabric need to be distributed evenly across smaller pieces of fabric. You'll begin doing this by looking for notches. Match up the notches between the 2 pieces of fabric, right at the ends, and pin them in place. And then divide both of the pieces of fabric in half and look for those centers and pin those centers together. Then move to one section at a time and continue to divide the section in half and pin the halves together until all of the fabric is distributed evenly over the smaller piece of fabric. When sewing pinned ruffles and gathers together, go slowly and remove the pins as you approach them. You never want to sew right over a pin as you might break the needle. As you pull out the pins, use one instead of your finger to straighten the fabric and help it feed smoothly through the sewing machine. Tip number 4. Reducing bulk is really important when making doll clothing. Clipping the curves will help the seams lay flat. As you sew, you will find that there are inner curves and outer curves. Each one is clipped a little differently. You will find inner curves in the armhole area like this example. Here you will need to make little clips in the seam allowance, just to, but not through, the stitching. Making these clips will allow you to press the seam allowance into a curved shape so that you can easily stitch a finished edge. You will find outer curves in pants. Here you will need to cut little wedge-shaped notches from the seam allowance. Tip number 5. When starting to sew rickrack, pull on the thread ends to help the feed dogs catch the fabric and avoid having the bulk pulled down into the throat plate of the machine. Frequently check to make sure that the rickrack is centered over the edge of the fabric to make perfect scallops at the bottom of a hem. Hook and loop tape can add extra bulk under the machine. When sewing in small spaces, it is hard for the feed dogs to grab the material. Use a tool to help push the fabric until the feed dogs grab. My ruler is always handy and makes a good pusher. Throughout this video, I've been using Simplicity pattern number S0670. Thank you for watching this video. Let us know what you think about these 5 helpful tips by leaving a comment below. Like us on Facebook, check us out on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.